Nice to meet you folks. My name is Dave Stenson. I'm a solution architect with the Migration Evaluator team, and I've been kindly invited along today to talk to you about what Migration Evaluator is, how it works, what you can expect during and at the end of a Migration Evaluator assessment, and of course, answer any questions that you may have at the end. So we'll start with a little bit about what the value proposition of Migration Evaluator is. I'll move into the methodologies in terms of how we can actually support data capture. We'll talk a little bit technically about what it is as well. So what is Migration Evaluator? It's designed to help your customers build a data-backed business case for migrating to the cloud. It works by analyzing your customers' on-premise workloads to identify over-provisioning or underutilization that might be occurring, and with that data, recommending the lowest cost, best fit EC2 instance to meet the needs of those workloads. Using the analytics engine, which is one of the deliverables at the end of an assessment, you can also mix and match different payment types, such as exploring on-demand payment type, which is pay-as-you-go, maybe for non-production workloads that do not need to be on all of the time, and then looking at reserved instances or savings plans for more stable, predictable production workloads. So it allows you to mix and match and find what's the best blend for you and your customers. There are 3 different ways that data can be captured, which I'll go into in later slides, but each are designed to be fast, light touch, and of course, complementary, regardless of the scope of the assessment. So whether it's 50 machines or 5,000, Migration Evaluator is the complementary service, and you can expect the same level of service from the Migration Evaluator team. So where does Migration Evaluator fit in the migration journey? We're very much positioned at the very beginning in the assess phase. We don't require any agents to be installed onto servers. We don't look at processes running on servers or query usernames, none of your data. So there's a very low bar to entry. After a Migration Evaluator assessment, when customers are ready to mobilize, they can log on to AWS Migration Hub within the management console. And from there, they can upload their inventory, they can group servers together into applications, for example. If there's a further level of data required in terms of looking at network dependencies and application dependencies, they can look to install Application Discovery Service, which is another tool within the migration services portfolio here at AWS that does capture that level of data. And what that can help with is starting to plan migration ways, migration planning along the way. Application Discovery Service, along with Cloud Endure, which can help with the actual execution of the migration itself, are also complementary services as well. So I guess in summary, Migration Evaluator is positioned at the very start. Every business case for migration starts with an assessment of the on-premise environment, and that's where Migration Evaluator fits in. So this is just a quick slide to highlight the benefit of what we call right sizing and the eventual data set that's generated from a Migration Evaluator assessment. We found that across the multi-thousands of assessments undertaken by Migration Evaluator, an average of 36% cost reduction compared to a customer's on-premise environment compared to a right-size migration. So what does a right-size migration mean? It means taking into account the on-premise CPU, memory, storage, operating system that's deployed onto the machine, any Microsoft SQL that's running, taking all of that data into account and trying to highlight where there's over provisioning, maybe underutilization, that is occurring before the move to AWS. In addition to that, Migration Evaluator will highlight opportunities for Microsoft SQL core optimization. And this is where cores that are not needed on the EC2 instance can be disabled, and therefore saving on the cost of those licenses as well. What can you, in terms of what you can expect at the end of an assessment, there are 3 deliverables, 1 by default and 2 upon request. The Quick Insights report provides customers with a 1-page summary of their projected AWS costs and savings based on measured on-premise provisioning and utilization data. This report is generated 48 hours after the first synchronization of data. And this it gives you some good data points around comparing what we call the direct match. So this would be an unoptimized migration, a like-for-like mapping on-premise to AWS versus a right-size migration. And that's taking into account the utilization data that's captured and showing what the potential savings might be there. If additional insights are needed, you can request a business case that includes an on-premise estimation and 2 future state cost modeling scenarios of your preference. The on-premise estimation takes into account server provisioning, the attached storage to those machines, and then we apply assumptions over the top for power consumption, the cost of the operating system, and any Microsoft SQL costs that are included as well. Some of the costs that are not included in that on-premise estimation are things like employee costs, migration tools, professional services, shared storage, those types of costs. So if you are looking to build a TCO, total cost of ownership of the on-premise environment, the data that is generated from Migration Evaluator will certainly feed into that. In terms of the on-premise or the 2 future state cost modeling scenarios, this is where, based on where you're potentially looking to host your workloads in AWS, you can model to review the difference between, let's say, a 3-year all upfront reserved instance plan in Ireland versus maybe a 1-year no upfront, and just looking at the difference in potential savings between the two, so you can arrive on what the best match is. In terms of how we captured data to feed into an assessment, there are 3 different ways. The first is the Agentless Collector. The second is using existing data. And the third is an export from the Application Discovery Service. The Agentless Collector is the default method of collecting data. This is where the Agentless Collector software is installed onto a virtual machine in your own customer's environment, and data providers are then configured. The supported being VMware, Hyper-V, and bare metal machines. And over a recommended 10-day period, time series telemetry data is captured. And with this data set at the end of an assessment, you're typically going to get a higher level of accuracy than maybe using existing data. Existing data, the benefits of using this can be if you're under maybe environmental constraints to install a virtual machine. Maybe you have stringent change control processes with getting this Agentless Collector software installed. Time constraints, maybe you need an answer, you need some figures for your stakeholders sooner rather than later. Using existing data can be very beneficial in that way, because we're going to be able to provide a result back to you by skipping that 10 days of collection that occurs with the Agentless Collector. So it's really up, again, we can support both methodologies, that if you have existing data and would like to install the Agentless Collector at a later date, that is of course possible too. Lastly, we've recently rolled out support for an export of application discovery service. This is, as mentioned earlier, this is a tool within migration services, which captures a lot of the same data that Migration Evaluator does, but gets a deeper level by discovering application dependencies, application mappings, which can be vital for when proceeding with a migration execution. So what it does not provide is the ability to model costs and look at the recommendations from EC2 and EBS with the captured data. And that's where Migration Evaluator comes in. So you can export the data very easy from Migration Hub, upload it to Migration Evaluator, and we'll be able to provide a result set back to you within a couple of days. So they're just the three options for you. There's a lot going on in this slide, so I'm not going to read this word for word, but just some of the details around the Agentless Collector in terms of the requirements of it. So it does require a dedicated server running Windows Server 2012 or greater. In terms of the security features from it, it's all of the data that's captured is backed up to a locally encrypted database on that virtual machine in your customer's environment that you control. Nightly synchronization of the captured data is supported, but if there are any concerns or you would like to review the data before sending over to Migration Evaluator, offline capture of data is supported, and at the end of the assessment you can review all of the data, redact data if you so wish, and then upload via the Migration Evaluator console at the end of the assessment. The three supported data providers are VMware, which captures data based on provided credentials from the vSphere API. Very, very easy and straightforward to set up. I've worked with customers in the past who have installed the collector, provided their credentials, and are capturing data within minutes. It's very straightforward. With Hyper-V and Bare Metal, we capture data via two supported protocols, which are WMI and SNMP as well. If you would like to include your Microsoft SQL into the assessment, there is another T-SQL protocol that can be added, and the version and edition of Microsoft SQL will be captured. Nothing else, no underlying processes or workflows are inspected by the Agentless Collector. Using existing data, we have a supported template that you can fill out, that if you have existing data using performance monitoring tools, or vTools is one of the popular tools that is used today. And there are some minimum data points that are required. Pretty straightforward. Server name, the provisioning of the machine in terms of CPU, the memory, the provisioned storage, and then an understanding of the operating system and if the machine is virtual or physical. If you have the other data points, fantastic. This is going to allow us to generate a more accurate a picture of your on-premise environment, and the recommendations as well that are generated by the Migration Evaluator algorithms, such as the CPU string. If you have an indication of if the machine is production versus non-production. If you have utilization data today, we can obviously take that. In the absence of that data, we can apply industry standard benchmarks in terms of what the typical utilization data is for production environments and non-production environments as well. Lastly, application discovery service. Again, this is where there are different options that are available for application discovery service. There's agent-based for bare metal machines. There's also a discovery connector, which is looked at vCenter, and it does support flat file as well. And again, you can migrate all of this data into Migration Hub you can start to enrich that data by adding environments, any other business data that actually makes sense to you and your business. You can, and then when you're looking to model that cost, you can of course then export it to Migration Evaluator. And do stay tuned into 2022. The Migration Evaluator and Application Discovery Service teams are working quite closely, and there's some exciting developments to come in that area. Migration Evaluator also does support environment groupings or application groupings. This can be important for, as I stated, to allow you to mix and match different cost models. What's popular with some of our customers is to model maybe 12 hours a day, Monday to Friday, for your non-production running on demand, which is pay as you go, and there's no commitments with that payment type. And then combining that with a all upfront reserved instance plan for production workloads. And this is where you know that they're going to be running 24/7, therefore availing of the discounted rate with reserved instances makes sense with those workloads as well. So combining those two can show you that the savings can start to add up quite quickly. As well, if you have what's called software assurance, where there's potential for you to bring your own licenses with you, either Windows Server or Microsoft SQL, do let us know, because we can show you some options, and we can start to potentially introduce you to other teams within migration services, such as the OLA team, which are the Optimized Licensing Assessment team, which dive deep with you into some of your agreements to see where costs could be further optimized as well. So that's all part of the migration journey. So that's almost it for me. In terms of some resources, there's the public-facing page for Migration Evaluator that you can review the installation guides. You can look at the Agentless Collector overview, review the flat file template, or indeed look at some of the videos that help you with understanding Migration Evaluator a little bit more. If you do have any general inquiries, you can always reach out to us at migration-evaluator@amazon.com. I'll pass my email address on to the organizers here today. If you want to reach out to me directly with any questions after the presentation, I'm more than happy to answer them. And for any partners involved that are part of the APN, you can always raise a request directly through the ACE portal as well. So just to let you know about that too. Thank you.